Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben. These are my tomes, and today we're asking the question, can you solve the murder? A choose your own adventure style whodunit. We were at our local Books-A-Million, and I ran across this book and was immediately intrigued with the premise here. It is a choose your own adventure style book for adults. So it is a whodunit, it is a murder mystery, and as you go through, you are making decisions. And also, they encourage you to journal as you are making these observations. In addition to your standard go here, do this, make your choices style of choose your own adventure, we also have various clues that we find throughout the book. So you'll be reading and it'll say, all right, mark in your notes A5. And then later there will be options that you can only do if you have that piece of information, if you have that clue. It is one of these books that directly challenges you, saying like, can you solve it? You have all this information. Do you know how to do detective work? Will you make the correct decisions? So I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I will check back in a few hours or whenever I hit some sort of important milestone that I feel is worth talking about, and just discuss what it's like reading this book where I have to crack the case. I'm finding it difficult to, one, stop reading this book because it is incredibly addictive, and it's really easy. If you thought one more chapter was like the pull to keep you reading, like one more of these tiny like excerpts that you have to read, you know, these tiny little bits of the case, it's so easy to say like, oh, I'll just do one more. I'll do one more. But I have thoughts. And I have a bit more of a sense of how the book works. So I thought I would come back in and do a little bit of an update. So unsurprisingly, you are not going to be able to do everything you want with this puzzle. I'm going to try to remain vague when I'm describing this, but let's just say there was choice A, B, and C, and you could only do two of the three of them. And the way that the book seems to work, as far as like my brain is like puzzling it out as I'm going. So near as I can tell, like when you went to A, that gave you a little bit of a bonus when you went to B. And then I think C went to something that happened directly after those three choices. So you got a bonus one way or the other, but you're never going to get both of the little bit of bonus information. And it's really frustrating to be reading and like just know in the periphery there's something going on. There's another choice you could have made where you like there's information out there that you don't have, and like, is that information the most important? Can you solve this if you make the mistake of doing the wrong choice as far as like who to question or what you should do versus what you should allow your partner to do? It is kind of brain burny if you think about it too much. So I'm not thinking about it. I'm just trying to go along and figure out as much as I can for myself in the path that I have chosen. I paused because one of the most recent entries I read actually had a cipher, and the police were like, it's jumble out. I don't know, maybe it's a cipher. And I'm like, no, like, you're a detective. We're supposed to be solving this. Let's like look at this and see if we can figure it out. And I think that I got it, but it's unclear because if it is a cipher, it's got some weird misspellings maybe in it, and that in itself might be a clue later on. I don't know, but it was really fun to sit down and try to piece together what this brief message said. And like I said, I think I got it, and it lines up with some other information we got shortly after, so that was pretty cool. And the neat thing about it for the particular route that I'm taking is it seems to be information from a path that I did not take. It is dealing with a character that I did not directly interact with. And so I'm wondering if that is kind of a way that they allow you to kind of pull in some details from other points in the book. I am loving this so far. I don't know if I'm any closer to solving the case, and I have no idea how long the book is going to take, because while the book itself, like the physical book, is about 280 pages, I'm not going to read 280 pages. I might not even read half of that information. So it's really difficult to tell if you're getting closer, if I'm supposed to be zeroing in on something. Right now, I still feel like we're collecting evidence, like we're learning new things, and we haven't even started like pulling anything together at this point. This is the thing that I'm most interested in at this point. Is the final reveal going to be something where you can say, like, I believe it is X, or I believe it's Y, and there is a correct answer and different endings depending on if you land on the correct answer? Or is this going to be a case where the choices you make kind of push you into a certain narrative that's maybe separate from another trail you could take going a different direction? So very interested to see how that's going to play out. A really cool book so far. I feel good right now. I feel like I am tracking things. I'm doing all my note taking on my phone this time, which is a little bit difficult, especially like trying to figure out that cipher, but I am having a really good time, and so far would highly recommend this book if you're a fan of whodunits. Check in tomorrow, let you know if I made any more headway. I'll see you then. Day 2 of reading through Can You Solve the Murder? And I have some complex feelings on this. I don't think I've ever read a book that makes me feel so smart and so worried at the same time, because there will frequently be lists of, like, if you have this letter and number combination, turn to this one, and if you don't have that one, then go on to this next one. If you don't have that one, then just go to this one. Just go to this one. That's where everybody else goes. And I was running across that so much early on in the book, and it really did feel like there's this whole other storyline happening out there somewhere nebulously that I was completely ignorant of because I had never really engaged with it until later in the book. And that was a little bit distressing, knowing that you are missing out on something. There is something out there in the world of the book that you are not experiencing. However, I did feel super smart for having decoded the cipher that's in here, and was assured by the book when I got around to the part where they just kind of like hand you the answer that if you solve it early, you get extra points, and it's all about the points at the end of the day. And knowing that ahead of time got me some additional text chains, some additional content that was blocked off to people who hadn't gone through that process. So at least in that part, I felt really good because I was getting all the, if you have this one, then go here and talk to them about this thing. So that was very cool. I am already at the J'accuse part of the book, where I have a list of how many people? I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different potential culprits that it could be, and I have to make the decision right now, who am I going to say is the murderer in this case? And that's going to really determine, I think, a lot of the score at the end and like the end of the story. So I will say I have a suspicion. I don't have confidence about it. I don't know the details. But one thing I've learned in doing this series and like actually trying to slow down and solve these cases is you're not always looking to completely solve everything that has happened. You are looking for who has the opportunity, who has the motive, and without getting too spoilery for this particular book, what changed, like what happened where this is the day where this person ended up getting killed. And I think with that in mind, I have a good sense of who I want to accuse. I'm going to go and just dive in and hope for the best, and I will come back with my conclusion of the book, let you know my score and things like that. And give you my overall rating for this system and this book, because it really is a unique reading experience, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I was intrigued already with the idea of choose your own adventure whodunit, but the way this is being presented is an extra layer of fun and giving you a good sense of being part of an investigation. So very cool. I will come back with my final thoughts and all that extra in-game material in just a moment. Final thoughts, final check-in time. I will reveal whether or not I solved the case, but first a couple of like meta things to talk about here at the end. There is a section at the end of the book where you get points based on the clues you got throughout your read of the book. And it does point out that some of the clues are like wasting time. There are some negative points potentially if you were kind of going the wrong direction. I did hit one of those. But the thing I was going to say is if you are going to read this book, I would highly recommend grouping the clues by the letter, because you will come across, let's say, like X1, and then you'll have like X7 at the end of the book. They'll be arranged in order of like, these are the ones out of each of those letters that actually earn you points. And so if you have a little bit more organization in your writing, I think that would go a long way in helping you not only check when you have to look to see if you have a number, because I had 2 numbers that I had doubled up, but also to do that score at the end. So like parse out your numbers. That's my big hint, or my big recommendation if you're going to tackle this reading experience. And yeah, I ended up, I want to say my read through, my run, I ended up with like 32 different number combination clues at the end. And so that was a lot of checking to do. Like I said, I did it on my phone. I was basically going through, and as I was entering the numbers, I was deleting them so I'd have less to filter through. So so that's something to keep in mind. And then at the end of the book, you are given a rank based on all the clues you did and whether or not you could do certain other things within the course of the book. So that was super cool. I ended up with the Master Detective rank quite comfortably. I want to say that the Master Detective rank, so the Master Detective rank is 120 points, and I ended up at 145. So I feel like I did a pretty good job. I did solve the case. When it came down to deciding who the murderer was, I believe there were a couple of different endings that could possibly have gone through, but I'm unsure. It seems like there's the potential where you could maybe circle back and make another attempt, perhaps, if you kind of like talk your way through some of them. But I don't know, because I didn't see the rest of the responses. I just saw the true ending of the book. Another thing I will say is that I don't think you need to take as extensive of notes as I usually do with this type of video and this type of processing, because the book is doing a little bit of that lifting for you in remembering some of the key details to bring up later. So when you have one of those choices where it's like, oh, if you have Q7, then look at this, and then you'll go to Q7 and it'll be like, haha, I remember this detail from earlier. And I'm like, I don't remember that detail from earlier, but I experienced it, I went through it. So I think it does a little bit of that lifting for you, which is kind of a relief, because otherwise I'm taking very detailed notes. I did not have to have my crazy board for this video. Don't take extensive notes. Like you should know who the different characters are and kind of what their general stories are, but I don't think you need to write down every detail like I was doing toward the beginning of the book. Overall, would I recommend Can You Solve the Murder? I think honestly this is like the most fun I've had with a whodunit in a while, and I really like the interactive nature of it. If you're cool with going through a little bit more of the processing of, going back and forth throughout the book and note-taking a little bit with keeping your clues straight, I think you would get a kick out of this. It's a lot of fun. The author talked about, obviously, Choose Your Own Adventure as an inspiration, but also the game books from the 80s from Steve Jackson, which I have some of those somewhere. I talked about possibly doing a live stream with one of those. But talking about like gamifying the structure of going through and crafting this mystery, I think as far as the story goes, it's obviously on the shorter end, 275 pages, but you're probably only reading 200-ish of those if I had to hazard a guess. But I think for the experience and for the sensation of actually going through and making meaningful decisions, I as stressful as it was, I liked that you couldn't do everything. I'm excited to give this to Amanda and have her go through it and see how her story is a little bit different, how she goes about the investigation in a different way than I did. And I think that could be a lot of fun. I think this would be a great buddy read. On other Can I Solve videos, I have said that these are not really meant to be reviews, but I would highly recommend this. I'm going to give it 5 stars. I think that if you are a fan of whodunits, this is a great experience to go through and a whole lot of fun. And there's a sequel. So I will be picking up that sequel for sure. I had a lot of fun, and it was an easy read too. Because each of these sections is only 3 pages, 4 pages at most, and some are even like half a page, it's really easy to just tell yourself, oh, I'm just going to go through like one more bit of the investigation. There were some parts where it was like question these different witnesses. I'm like, I'm going to go through and just get all this questioning out of the way, and then I'll move on to the next one, and I'll pause after that. But it was really easy to get lost in the story and to continue to drive forward. And I think that's a hallmark of a really good book. Check it out. Can you solve the murder? Find out for yourself. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.